Something unusual is happening in Silicon Valley. Not in the stock market, not in AI labs, but in the one place you would never expect tech billionaires to turn their attention to: land. Massive amounts of land. Quietly purchased, strategically assembled, hidden in shell companies. This is not a real estate trend. This is not a hobby. This is a plan, and it's much bigger than most people realize. Because once you understand why they're buying this land, you start to see the beginning of something that could reshape cities, power, politics, and even how societies are built. Over the last 5 years, billionaires from the tech world, the people we usually associate with apps, data centers, and AI models, have quietly moved billions of dollars into land purchases. Elon Musk moving to Texas and buying vast industrial acreage. Jeff Bezos buying tens of thousands of acres for wind, energy, and space infrastructure. Mark Zuckerberg buying over 1,500 acres in Hawaii. Peter Thiel accumulating ranches. And the most mysterious of all, the $900 million Flannery land scheme in California, where a group of Silicon Valley billionaires secretly acquired 55,000 acres of land, piece by piece, without telling anyone what they were planning. The most shocking part in all this is that they're not buying land for what it is. They're buying it for what it's going to be worth in a future defined by scarcity, climate stress, and geopolitical instability. While everyone else is watching the stock market, they are watching soil, water tables, zoning maps, and agricultural yields. To understand why land is suddenly the hottest asset in the world, you have to zoom out, because this is not a new idea. Throughout history, every major power shift, from empires to monarchies to industrial titans, was built on one thing: land. Not money, land, because land determines agriculture, energy, transportation, housing, water, and minerals. It is the foundation layer of civilization. For 40 years, technology made land feel irrelevant. Software created billionaires with no physical footprint. Crypto created millionaires with nothing but a private key. Online businesses needed zero land, zero factories, zero physical assets. And for the first time in human history, wealth was digital. We thought we had outgrown geography. However, the pendulum always swings back. The world hit 3 limits at the same time. Limit number 1, water stress. According to research data, the American West is experiencing the worst megadrought in at least 1,200 years. Water is becoming the new oil. Limit number 2, food security. The UN warns that global food demand will grow 70% by 2050, but arable land per person is shrinking every year. Farmland values in the US have been rising for the last 50 years, sometimes even during recessions. Limit number 3, energy transition bottlenecks. The shift to renewable energy requires huge amounts of land. This is to set up solar farms, wind corridors, substations, and transmission lines. Suddenly, land is not just dirt, it is now infrastructure. These tech billionaires are not buying land for doomsday bunkers. They are buying it because the world is shifting back to physical constraints. Software can scale infinitely, the planet cannot. After 2020, something changed. A real quantifiable shift in how the ultra-rich view land. When COVID-19 hit, supply chains broke globally, groceries ran out across the US. Suddenly, the idea that the system always works collapsed. A report by the Council on Foreign Relations documented how global food supply chain disruptions triggered mass shortages. For the first time since World War II, wealthy individuals realized that land that can produce its own food was not a luxury, it was insurance. From there, millionaire and billionaire farmland purchases surged 223% from 2020. Inflation also played a major role. When US inflation hit a 40-year high in 2022, asset managers looked for things that beat inflation, generated steady yield, and were not tied to Wall Street volatility. Historically, farmland outperformed stock market and bonds, hence why they turned aggressively toward farmlands. Bill Gates became the largest private farmland owner. Jeff Bezos expanded multiple ranch acquisitions across West Texas, while Ted Turner pushed past 2 million acres in ranchland. This shift was not ideological but financial mathematics. Another part that almost everyone ignores is that large parts of US farmland are now experiencing long-term water stress. Climate models are already predicting that by 2040, northern states will become more fertile while southern states will experience declining yields. So these billionaires are just reallocating, buying land where water aquifers will survive. avoiding drought-prone southwest regions, and targeting areas projected to remain resilient. If the future of food is uncertain, owning the land below a reliable water table becomes a strategic hedge. Land that has water is now the new oil. The story gets more interesting. These billionaire projects require land. For example, Elon Musk bought over 3,500 acres of land in Bastrop County, Texas, to develop a company town for his employees at Snailbrook, his boring company. Mark Law is building Tolosa, a proposed 150,000-acre futuristic, sustainable city worth $400 billion. Y Combinator founders and Stripe early employees invested in California Forever, a 55,000-acre land purchase in Solano County for a new planned community. This is the shift. Land is no longer about farming. It has become the raw material for private cities, experimental communities, energy projects, and self-sufficient estates. Land as a power asset is quiet but immense. In the hierarchy of assets, crypto is volatile power, stocks are financial power, AI companies are technological power, but land is functional power. It gives you water, food, energy, housing, logistical control, and physical space for technological experiments. This is why billionaires are buying, not because they want more money, but because land is leverage in a world of uncertainty. Currently, every major geopolitical risk report lists food insecurity, resource scarcity, water stress, climate migration, and supply chain fragility as top global threats to the next 20 years. Land solves these multiple risk vectors, at once transforming itself from a forgotten asset to the most strategic asset class of the decade. Now that we have seen why tech billionaires are buying land, we have to talk about the part nobody wants to touch: the consequences. And not in a conspiracy theory way, but in a real, observable, documented way. Because when a small number of ultra-wealthy people accumulate a resource as fundamental as land, the ripple effects hit everyone. First, land prices explode, and regular people get locked out. US farmland prices have climbed 47% in just 5 years from 2020. The national average value of farm real estate hit a record high of $4,350 per acre in 2025. In states with heavy investor buying, like Iowa, Colorado, and Washington, increases reach 60 to 70%. For the average family trying to buy a rural plot, it is more difficult. In addition, the average US cropland value rose to a record $5,830 per acre, a 4.7% increase from 2024. Why does this happen? Because investors don't buy to farm, but to hold. And when the billionaires compete with farmers, farmer incomes stay flat while land costs go vertical. Second, farmland turns into a financial asset, not a food asset. Historically, farmland existed to grow food. But when people like Gates, Turner, Bezos, and massive private equity firms buy land, food becomes secondary. Financial yield becomes primary. This leads to 3 documented effects. Farmland gets leased, not farmed. Already, more than 39% of the nearly 900 million acres of US farmland is now rented. Food production shifts to high-profit crops. Investors prefer corn for ethanol and animal feed, and soy and almonds for exports. Data shows US wheat acreage is at a 107-year low, while vegetable and fruit acreage is shrinking. Water rights then become the next power play. When the billionaires buy land, they are not just buying dirt, they are buying water with the explicit goal of controlling this increasingly scarce resource, treating it as an appreciating asset. So whoever controls the land controls the water. Billionaires have already begun positioning around this. Bill Gates' largest parcels sit atop major aquifers in Arkansas. Bezos's Culberson County ranch includes water rights near a Texas aquifer used for large-scale agriculture. Corporate almond farms in California's Central Valley hold massive groundwater pumping rights. This isn't illegal. It is just strategic. But the consequence is this: communities compete with billionaires and corporations for the same water table. And historically, communities lose. These shadow cities and private towns change democracy itself. This consequence is the most subtle, but very important. When billionaires buy tens of thousands of acres, They don't just build homes, they build jurisdictions. When private land becomes private governance, zoning can be influenced, local elections shift, policies favor owners, and public space becomes controlled space. For the first time, private cities are being built by private wealth, and they can shape everything from economics to migration patterns. Eventually, the wealth gap becomes a resource gap. Income inequality becomes land inequality. Because once a physical resource is owned, it cannot be coded away, disrupted, or scaled. Land does not care about innovation. Land does not care about startups. Land does not care about skill level. It cares about ownership. And right now, ownership is moving upward. Consider these facts. The top 1% of landowners control almost 30% of all US land value. The top 100 landowners control more land than the entire state of Florida. This is a silent power shift in progress. And that brings us to the final, uncomfortable truth. This land rush is not about profit. It is about positioning. The next technological revolution will not happen in the cloud. It will happen on the ground, shaped by the people who see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. What kind of world are they preparing to build on it? And will the rest of us get a say in that future, or just simply live in it?